Hello, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Nonprofit Marketing Mastery Power Session. I usually say it's going to be about 20 minutes, but I think we have we've already been covering so much, prepping for joining you, and I know we're probably going to go a little long, so stick with us because I do have Maria and Ciara here from Send It Social, and they've got a lot to share. I feel so fortunate, blessed, whatever language you want to use, to be able to have them today. As I've been a little secret, like before we hear from them, I will confess I've been a little secret, like mini fan of them since I think I stumbled across Maria in like October, November last year on LinkedIn, and like every single thing she posted and then Ciara posted was just like beautifully, perfectly, like thoughtful, quirky, historically grounded, but like super cool. And I think when you think of museums, which is who they work with, you don't think of cool. And so I've been fascinated by what they've been able to bring to light. Again, they are the co-founders of Send It Social. That is a boutique marketing agency focused on social media for museums exclusively. And so excited not only just to hear about museums that are a nonprofit, but to kind of glean a little bit if you're a social service agency or an association on how can you take what they do and the knowledge they have and implement it within social media for your organization. So Ciara, Maria, thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Kelly. We're so excited.
Yay. Okay. We also strategize, full confession, we also strategize beforehand on how to make sure we're not all talking over each other. So we'll do our best, but stick with us. So first, if I could just jump right in, like take me back kind of to the very beginning. How did you guys, or why did you guys decide to create Send It Social?
Yeah, we're so excited that you're even asking this question that we're here today. Send It Social just turned 1. Yay. But yeah, our working relationship started in 2018. We were both at a science center. Ciara had come in as a social media manager. And I eventually joined her on the marketing team a couple of years later. And then we really found our groove together in short form video when the pandemic started in 2020. So we started, making all these educational videos and posting them, or they were tailored specifically for TikTok. So we started posting them, we started seeing traction, and we grew the following to like 200,000 followers on TikTok. So it was working. What we were doing was working. And we just really fell in love with being able to make that impact virtually. And so that's the backstory. A couple years later, after that, Ciara had moved on to another company, and we still had that like dream of working together again after seeing how fun and effective it was. And so we ended up being both at a crossroads last year. So we came together and had this crazy idea to just do something on our own. And so we started Send It Social, where we wanted to really make that same educational impact we had been making at the Science Center, but for more organizations. And so we started really broadly taking like any client. And it wasn't until like a few months ago, so pretty recently, that we decided to niche down into the museum world. Okay. But yeah, that's a lot in one short blip, but yeah.
Can I ask a question then? I said I'm gonna send in, oh, hello, Tanetta, good to see you. I did want to jump in and ask, and hopefully this isn't too nosy, like, did you guys just like have the idea and go? What made you decide to put up a shingle?
Do you want to take that?
How did that happen?
It was, so Ciara had approached me. I got a phone call from her one day, and I had been telling like my husband, like, I need to work with her. Like he knows the story. I need to work with her. I picked it up, and she was looking for help. She was doing some freelancing at the time and taking on all these projects. So she's like, hey, I'm really, like it's getting to be a lot, would you like to help me out? I know we work well together. And I told, again, we were both at a career crossroads. So I told her, you give me the word, Ciara, I will quit my current job and I will like do this full time with you. And I think we took maybe a week or two and really thought about it. And we're like, okay, let's just do it.
At first we're like, let's think about it. Let's go slow. Let's like run the numbers. But then, ultimately it was like too exciting. And it was a good chance to like take a risk and jump in together. But Yeah, glad we
Yes.
did. Glad we didn't look back, but it did kind of happen. It feels like overnight, that we just decided to go for it.
Oh, so cool. And here you are a year later. Congratulations. That's a year in business is super exciting. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear. Okay, so maybe let's focus on like the museum clients. Like when your museum clients come to you, like what are common either problems or goals? Like what are people dealing with? What do they want from you?
Yeah, we see, like, very often how they know it's important to have a strong social media presence, but it can be hard to prove the value of it to the executive team, the people, making the budgets, all of that, and so it it's pretty clear now, and this is for, like, all nonprofits, that people aren't necessarily willing to leave the apps and, like, click on the link and go to the website and donate or, like, directly buy a ticket. Like, I think that myth has kind of been busted that, like, that's what social media is used for, like, when it comes to nonprofits, and so when there isn't that super direct ROI, it can be a little bit harder to prove that, hey, it's still so important to build community, to be top of mind, to give value. Like, social media is a great place where you can carry out your mission, and I think they do recognize that, but right now the best way to do that is through great video content, and that is very resource intensive to, like, make good videos, and so that's another, like, common problem we see is that we know we need to, like, invest in this, but it's so hard to, like, get it done in-house, and so that's usually kind of where they're looking for a lot of help.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, real quick, I would just add on to that. I think another kind of like difficulty for a lot of people, especially starting out maybe on social media is a lot of clients tend to see social media as this like constantly changing and evolving thing and they feel it's impossible to keep up, right? Or even like get in there. And we know people are always going to engage with a good story. So that's kind of where we come in that angle. And we focus on that evergreen organic content that's going to stand on its own and it's going to stand the test of time because the algorithm is literally always changing.
Yeah, it is funny. You were saying that, I'm gonna lose my train of thought. But one of the same people that are saying, I'm not to like attack our clients here publicly, but a lot of the same clients that are saying, oh, it's so complex, it's ever changing. And it's typically sometimes leaders that have no understanding of social media that are making it the most complex. And then they do nothing. And I see that as maybe something that a lot of nonprofits, and I would suspect, especially maybe some museums that are more institutionally grant funded or federally funded, that it's like, oh, it's too complex. So we're just going to keep doing the same thing and like do nothing. And so I'm certain that your clients are probably doing that too. But I would like to remind, especially the museums, that like inaction is also a decision, like a decision to invest in something, a decision to continue. Also, a decision to do nothing is a decision.
Yeah.
So what makes museums, and you just talked a little bit before we hopped on about like your decision to niche down, and you both had experience in museum marketing, and that's really where you kind of interacted with each other for the first time was through museum marketing and short form video. What makes museums particularly exciting to work with?
Yeah, museums are ripe with content. And so we really like to help them, pick those content fruits and then repackage them for social media. And yeah, they already have a collection of stories that are so good. I mean, they're in museums. And helping them find those connecting points with their audiences and even new audiences. And they're there. It's just like finding the way to do it. So on top of that too, we have, our personal passions for museums. We met at a museum or a science center. We see the value of museums and helping build community and as beacons of like education in society. So yeah, really, briefly put, it's we just see so much potential there.
Awesome. So this is maybe my perception of museums, or at least like I was saying, state and federally funded museums that I've been aware of in the past, that I would say are especially institutional and old school. So if you're dealing with a leader that maybe is like, social media, like, no, we're a museum, like, what would you say to them?
First, I think it's very understandable to kind of resist being experimental, because that's kind of what you have to do on social media is take
Mhm.
risks and do different things if you really want to stand out from the crowd. There's so much noise already. And so first of all, very, very understandable to kind of have that hesitation. Um, but I think as long as you're collaborating with a team, whether that's in-house or someone you contract who has a really good understanding of the organization, so that when they come through with innovative ideas, they are accounting for like all the nuances of the brand, and they're making sure that the risks are really calculated. Then like your chances of the social media like decisions not like blowing up in your face are lower. And so yeah, it's really just having working with people that you trust who are also willing to kind of push the boundary, but also just like being really respectful of the mission and the voice of the institution, because that's important too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
awesome. So, we've been talking really, I would say, big picture and theoretically, but I'd like to know, share with, if you're allowed to, share one of the most like exciting or projects or campaigns you've brought to life.
Yeah, so we actually had a recent one. We typically focus on the organic side of things, but we have done a couple paid campaigns. So we did a winter ad campaign for a museum who was celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Apple Macintosh, and so they had put on this like temporary pop up exhibit space with all these artifacts from not just the Macintosh but other Apple things from the past. So pretty cool. And we had been working with them already for a while, so we really understood the tone of voice they had, their brand, their mission. And so they trusted us to get really innovative with the assets we made, and we did. So we tried a ton of new styles. We created a lot of different things and kind of just threw them at the wall to see what would stick. And that's a lot of what we do, experimenting. You kind of have to sometimes to see what works.
Mhm.
And so, for example, for like the creative, we did some video grids where it was like 4 videos on one visual, and they were
Yeah.
just playing independently, more like aesthetic type things. And we had a screenshot of like a notes app from the iPhone, and that had all the details of the event with some emojis. We played with different retro computer type effects. That's like an aesthetic of its own, and it does like land well sometimes.
Mhm.
And we created even some like meme like images, that hit on nostalgia, which is a big thing. And
Mhm.
yeah, so we learned a lot from testing all this out. We tried different copy with it. For example, that notes app took off. Like it completely, like the clicks on that were crazy. We had to pause it at one point and just let the other creative catch up to see if maybe it was like meta favoring this one piece of creative.
Mhm.
So that one took off. The anything showing like vintage footage, we had, for example, a video of a retro or vintage TV playing an original 1984 ad from Apple showing the Macintosh.
Okay.
And yeah, people also love that one. As far as the copy, the headlines that were very nostalgic tended to do really well, or anything that directly called out that 40th anniversary. And in the copy, like captions that were longer actually did better than the shorter ones. So yeah, we
Huh.
saw a few different interesting things there, but a lot of experimentation, and that came with like the trust
Mhm.
that we had built with this institution. Yeah, I think we were really happy to see the results there.
Mhm. I love, and I think it's very, I wouldn't say humble, but like one of the ways that I think especially marketing agencies do things wrong is they err on the side of safety, and so they just do what's always been done because they know it works. So I love, Maria, the talking about experimentation and trial and A/B testing, but like at a very micro level. Like it's good for you guys for taking
Yeah.
those risks, and really, I'm sure the client was very excited about the end result as well. Correct?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, super cool. Um, and Sierra kind of alluded to this when she talked about the voice and the mission alignment. But I recently got a question. I recently got a question from a client that I'd like to hear your guys' response to. Maybe you can help me answer this potential client's question. They asked something along the lines of, "Well, if you're not here at our organization every day, how would you?" And I already answered. I think I was okay, but like, how will you understand what we're about to represent us?
Yeah, I think that's common, right? And there's definitely a balance there, right? It's fair to have some marketing team members who are in-house, who, especially for those like opportunistic content moments, they can capture them and they really have a deep understanding of the brand. But also for a lot of projects and campaigns, having an outsider's perspective can be such a great addition, right? Like when you're immersed in the work every day, it's common to develop this like curse of knowledge where you forget what the average person doesn't know, you forget what the average person finds interesting because you're just surrounded by it all the time. And so having like a fresh perspective, at least on the creative side, is so helpful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Go ahead.
ahead,
Go ahead,
Freya.
Kelly. Okay, so I'll just add same thing. That fresh perspective. I think when you bring in augmented support, like we always call ourselves like a supplement or a vitamin. We're not necessarily replacing the in-house team that is so like vital, but we are helping with that fresh perspective because it is easy to get stuck in like the same processes, especially if you know they've been working fine, right? But who knows? There are opportunities always for improvement or maybe ideas you haven't considered. So yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll keep
So
talking
I
later.
think I'm actually going to follow up on that. So both of you mentioned and kind of alluded before we hopped on like that you work so well together, and creative processes can be kind of like I suspect my creative process is different than Sierra's when she's working in isolation. It's different than Maria's when she's working in isolation. But together, you probably get in a rhythm. What does your brainstorming look like for the two of you?
We love the brainstorming process. That's always like our favorite part. And we like to do some kind of on our own and then a little some together. And then we'll bring in the client and do some with them too. So it's kind of like multi-layer of brainstorming. And so if you want to get really specific about the process we like to use is when we're kind of doing our brainstorm just like together, we'll come up with like prompts and we'll put them in a Jamboard. Have you used Jamboard before? It's like a PowerPoint.
On
It's
Google.
fun. It's like a PowerPoint on it's Google, and everyone can join and add sticky notes and just kind of stream of conscious throw things up. And so her and I will like meet together before the meeting and start coming up with ideas and some prompts that might prompt new ideas. And then when we have the clients join, we like to encourage a couple voices from not just the marketing team, but from other departments. And then we'll just like really try to set the stage and say, like, hey, this can be as wacky and like random as you want, and what we'll do after each slide, we'll spend a couple minutes brainstorming on a certain prompt. We'll all like come together and share the ideas we put up on the screen. And it's usually during that sharing process where someone's like, oh, that makes me think of this, or like, what if we like added on this other element to that? And that's usually where like the real magic happens, is like in that sharing process. And we just find it so fun and as collaborative as possible. This is what we try to aim for.
All right, this is what all I think innovators in digital space want the answer to. So I'm going to ask you, how do you know if an idea is a good idea?
I think, okay, if we both get excited about something, that's like a good indication that we're on to something, and it can be potentially really good. But I think we all have different perspectives. So making that space to be like really open and honest. And if you don't like, sometimes Sierra might not understand what I'm saying. Like between she and I, when we brainstorm, literally it's like free for all. Like we'll throw out the wackiest idea. So yeah, sometimes it does take some like questions and like, okay, maybe I don't really understand that. Can you elaborate? And we work at it. But I mean, that's a good question. I think it's a big question, but first and foremost, making that safe space to really share anything and build on that. And I think that's where you get like the craziest, but also the like most innovative ideas.
Yeah. And I think you alluded to right at the beginning that breaking through the noise of social media. So creative and innovative in and of itself, I hate to say, but like in today's age where everything's very like safe maybe, and like there's not that much innovation, that like it might be a wacky idea, but just the fact that it's different and new and unique, like, is gonna probably break through, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it can be the simplest thing too. Like maybe it's just an idea for a transition in a larger video, but that transition could be the beginning of the video and someone's tuning in. They're like, whoa, what just happened? So
Yeah. So you mentioned Jamboard. Do you guys typically have, and the brainstorming process? Like, I think people are curious about like, oh, these creatives that are like creating these big campaigns. Are you pen and paper or technologies or anything used out of the Jamboards and the brainstorming?
Well, Maria and I work remotely, and so we typically try, if we're doing work things, sometimes we'll also use the Canva whiteboard feature. And again, like a very sticky note situation, you can pull in images and like make it really dynamic, which is fun. But we both kind of have our love for pen and paper for like, I like to use it if I just like have a random idea for work, I'll try to write it down, but I always try to make a virtual copy of it too. I'm a big second brain Notion person. Don't get me started because I'll get like MLM on everyone. But I think it's so fun. I know Maria is always like, if she has like thinks of something to do, I see her whip out her pen and paper, and it's a big list lady.
yeah, same. It's I think for given the nature of remote work, we do share a lot of things online. And if we're working on a video script, for example, Google Doc will have like our script template and start just letting the ideas flow. And then it's just easy to copy and paste like visual references for maybe a shot we want to have, or stuff like that. But there's something to pen and paper, like Sarah mentioned, being a list lady. I totally am. At least with my daily tasks, I have to have a planner. Something about physically crossing things out. It's and that's so it's a mix for sure.
And I know I want to make sure, I promise I'm usually like 20 minutes. I want to make sure we stick to 25. But what advice would you give museums or organizations that maybe have like more low tech, that are trying to keep everything in, like maybe they're like, we could never ever hire them, but we want to learn from them, but we don't have any like technology resources? What advice would you give?
I think one like trick is leaning into ChatGPT to use it as like a trainer. So say that you're using a new software, don't really know how to use it, maybe can't afford to do like a full training program to like become really proficient at it. Something that we'll do a lot is like I've been editing in Adobe Premiere for like a decade, and there's still things that I'm like, I don't know how to do this effect. And then I'll like pull up ChatGPT and then like explain the specific scenario, and it'll say, oh, here's how to do it. And so that's something I haven't seen people talk about a lot, is that it can be so helpful in just like being a trainer, right? And especially if you don't have resources, you don't have a whole team that like knows how to use all the different technology, that could be really helpful.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I to that point, I used to just Google like if I wanted a specific effect on Premiere, but ChatGPT gives you like, I mean, it'll comb through the data, so it can give you really actionable things right away. And then another quick thing there, speaking of combing through data, ChatGPT, one really specific use case scenario, if you're working with like 2 to 3 hour long videos, like oral histories in museums, pasting the transcript and asking ChatGPT for help identifying like really engaging content opportunities could be a really good way to go. I know people sometimes see it as like a little evil, like maybe risky to lean into AI, but as far as it being a tool for effectiveness and like really getting those processes streamlined, I would definitely suggest that.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the 2024, there's no longer the case of like the one man show. Like you don't have to work in isolation. Like ChatGPT could be your best friend, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
We just said it's our boss sometimes.
That's funny. Out of interest of time, we are going to go a couple more minutes over, just because I have questions I'm dying to ask you. So I'm going to hold you a little bit later. What's your favorite piece of feedback you've gotten from a client?
So, oh man, a one that sticks out because we worked with some like really awesome people and they're so nice. And I think, especially working remote, any validation you receive from the outside is like, oh, thank you. It's like all worth it. But for this one particular client, we were working with a museum, and so we made these short form videos based off of those same 2 to 3 hour long oral histories I just mentioned. And these oral histories are really well made. And, with reason, the curatorial team that works to produce them and do the interviews with the individuals featured, like they pour their heart and soul into those. And with, all their respect, like when we first started, I think, you can sense that they're like, they hold us very close. And maybe when we say we want to use them on social media, it's like, oh, okay, and so we want to do them proud. And so anyways, we made a few of them, and one in particular, we used an oral history, created the short form video, and incorporated like some visuals and graphics from other artifacts or like photos related to the story. And we got an email from one of the, not even the people we worked directly with, but like one of the people from that team. And they said they were massively impressed and saw how effective the use of visuals was. Like, so it was really great to hear that there can be that collaboration. And, you don't want to step on anyone's toes either, especially coming in the way we come in and we're using their work and building on that to post it on social. So yeah, I would say that's been one of like the best pieces of feedback we received. Just like, yes, awesome. So we are a team, and it's not, no one's competing, but yeah.
Oh, so cool. And I think, intellectual property, and I don't want to go too far into it, but like, I know the individuals that originally did the curation, creating, editing, whatever piece of like, they hold that finished product to be like a finished product.
Right.
So it's so cool that they thought it was, pieced appropriately to
Exactly.
that's so
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So these are questions I ask every guest on a nonprofit marketing mastery power session. What's something that nonprofits do with their marketing that makes you cringe?
I think putting a link in a Instagram caption, the classic one, that one can be a little bit cringy because you can't click on it. And even sending people to the link in bio, even that, people probably aren't gonna do that either, as I mentioned before. And so just using it strictly for promotional purposes, I guess I could say, where you're not using it to tell stories or really give value or education, just giving it to kind of yell at your audience. Definitely not recommended.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maria, do you have a separate one you want to add?
I would say, maybe like any content that comes across a little bit like filler content. Like, I think there's very particular ways if you want to play off of like the seasonal holidays. Yeah, there are ways to do it for sure. And if you connect it back to your institution, I think that's awesome. But, sometimes you can tell, and it's not just like the seasonal stuff. Like when people are posting just to post, we always say like quality over quantity. Yeah.
I'm laughing. I literally kind of got an argument with a client that wanted to just, we need to post something that's that day. I'm like, well, we need to figure out how to connect it like to like your organization, or like then you're just taking up space. And like the last thing I'm going to do is put a graphic quote that has nothing to do just to like represent the person saying it, to like check. It's so true. Thank you. Okay. What's one thing you wish more nonprofits did with their marketing?
More video, but not talking about like the super professionally made videos. Those have their place, still important, love those. But for social media, making the smartphone vertical, very authentic, like tailored to the platform, telling stories that way. I think there's so much opportunity that is just untapped that we got to do more of.
Yeah, 100%.
Same. Yep.
Okay. And then if people want to learn more about you guys and Send It Social, where can they do this?
You can find us both on LinkedIn. We're pretty active on there, or trying to be. And if not, on Instagram, I think that's our main other platform. So you can find us at Send It Social Media.
Awesome. And I also try, before we let them go, to remind people that when you go to see social media managers and you're like, they don't have that much on their own, that means they're busy with doing amazing client work. So don't think that like how many followers, don't think that how many followers they have is indicative. That probably just means they're doing such good jobs of client work and focused on that, right? So that might even mean that they're not out like hustling to get clients as clients are coming to them. So slide into their messages. Awesome. Thank you. Maria and Sierra, I'm a huge fan of both of yours, and Send It Social. So keep up the amazing work. And thank you again for joining as guests for this week's Nonprofit Marketing Mastery Power Session. And again, you can find them at Send It Social. Until next week.
Thank you.
Thank you. So fun.